Tip number one, guys, is synchronization. To sync your images to create a faster workflow. Let me show you. Synchronizing will change the way you edit forever, and it will speed up your workflow so much. And it's very simple to do. I'll always start off with doing my base preset, in this case KT1, and by the way, my preset pack is for sale. Link down in the description. Now I give my couples between 600 to 700 photos on average, and I would do this method with all 700 photos. So you click on your base preset, then here down on the bottom you go Control A or Command A and you say synchronize. Now when you do synchronize, make sure that the local adjustments, your brush, graduate filter, radial filter, as well as spot removal and crop is deselected, and then synchronize. This will now apply that preset to all your images, and only then I will start editing on the first image. Now this one I'll do the exposure a bit and then warm up the image a bit and open up the shadows just for his suit, and then from there I will go to my HSL sliders, make the orange a bit less. Now at the bottom here, I'll then look at what scenes looks to be very much the same as this one, and I think it's up to here, and all I'll do is go synchronize. Then I'll change the color because I've color coded my images, and as soon as I change the color, the image will disappear, which takes me to the next one, which is so much easier. Now I don't like the white balance on this particular one. I'm going a bit for a cooler look and a less magenta, and now I'll go synchronize again, and we go 9. That's edited, 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 edited. I just edited 4 or 5 images within seconds, guys. Now I see here needs a bit of a adjustment, less warmth, less magenta, and I go synchronize again. So every time I make a adjustment, I synchronize. So again, done, done, done. This one can go a bit warmer, and I would like to drop the exposure a bit, so there, and a bit warmer, and I go synchronize again because I have made adjustments. Done, done, done. This one can go a bit higher in exposure, go synchronize again, done, done, and done. Different scene. Now suddenly the white balance is very warm, and we can do a quick white balance here. Drop the magenta a bit. I'll definitely up the exposure, open up the shadows a bit less orange on the skin tones. I think even less magenta. There we go, less warmth. Alrighty, and now you go Control or Command A to select all again. I go synchronize again, and the image is done, 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 done. You can see how fast this editing is going, guys. Look at that. That is insane. Until the scene changes, that scene changes still fine for me. This particular one, I'll up the exposure slightly and go synchronize again. And that's about 50 images done within seconds. Tip number 2, guys, has also got to do with speeding up your workflow. And it's so easy by just building one-on-one previews. Have a look at this. Building one-on-one previews for your Lightroom catalog will make your Lightroom faster and therefore your workflow. And it's very easy to do, but before I show you how to do it, I just want to show you what it actually does. So the nice thing about it is, as soon as you've done it, you can actually now, obviously depending on the speed of your PC or Mac, you can flick between the images very fast. And as soon as you zoom in, it's immediate, and you can see whether or not an image is sharp. Go to Library, you go to Previews, go to Build One-on-One Previews, and say Build All. Do note that building one-on-one previews does take a lot of time, and I suggest you let the computer do it through the night so that when you wake up in the morning, you're ready to go and edit. Tip number 3, graduate filter. It's a filter I use a lot in my images. I've got 2 great radial filter tips for you guys today. The first one is to use auto mask. So what you can do is you do a radial filter on the sky here, but as you can see, it will affect the mountains. Let me show you. So I'm going to bring down exposure like this, and you can see that the mountain now is affected about the exposure change. All right, but to change this, what you can do is you go to brush, click on the brush there, then click on erase because you want to take away, and then make sure that auto mask is selected. What's going to happen now, if I click on the mask, it will actually now brush the edges so that you don't go into the sky when brushing. How cool is that, guys? You still have to be careful, but it is so much easier. So you can have a look now. If I take away the mask, you'll see that I can go down like all the way, and it is perfectly on the edge. The second tip I have for you with regards to the graduate filter today is to balance exposure. Now there's two ways to edit this image. You can actually up the exposure for the couple and then use something, whether it's a brush or graduate filter, to bring down the exposure on the mountain. But I do believe you're going to lose detail. So what I'll do is take the graduate filter, drag it up because then it affects the bottom of the image. Drag it up like that. Up the exposure, up the shadows a bit, and the couple is nicely exposed as well as the mountains. I can even out down the exposure a bit to get that perfect exposure for the couple as well as the mountains. One more example, guys, for balancing exposure and even white balance with the graduate filter is to do it indoors as well. So in this case, the bride was standing in the room and the shadows was falling on the top half of her body, which makes her a bit warmer, but the bottom half is direct sunlight that bounced from outside, which makes the white balance a bit more blue and overexposed. Again, I'll drag it from the bottom like that. You can see what part it affects. I'll bring down the exposure and then warm it up a bit to balance out the white balance. Tip number 4, the brush tool. A lot of you use the brush tool and it is an absolutely amazing tool. But there's one or two little things that you might not know. Let's have a look. The brush tool is a very powerful tool, and I would like to show you 2 tips actually with regards to the brush tool. The first one is if you click on the brush tool, you can actually go to iris enhancement, which is actually meant for the eyes. But I sometimes use it to make the brush or bush or whatever you want to call it around the couple pop a bit. So if you brush on it like that, I'm just going to change my flow. There we go. Look at the brushes doing just its magic around the couple. So I'm going to switch off the brush and on, off and on. And you can change the intensity of it, but just upping and downing the exposure or perhaps even the saturation. But you can see that it makes quite a big difference. The second tip with regards to the brush tool is very similar to the graduate filter tip I did earlier, using the auto mask, but this time I'm gonna not take away by erasing, I'm actually gonna add. So I'm gonna press O so that you guys can see where it is affecting the image. And it works to make quite a big brush. So I'm just gonna like brush over the edge here, and you can see it doesn't go over the edge at all. Take it away, and I'm can down my exposure. Dehaze is one thing that works nicely if you want to bring back some clouds, but you'll be amazed what you can do by just using auto mask here at the bottom while brushing. It works nice for trees, it works beautiful for mountains, and it can make quite a difference to your image. Tip number 5, guys. White balance, the foundation of every single image, as I always say. And I've got an easy way for you to get to that perfect white balance. Now in the early days when I still battled with white balance, and sometimes I still do, and I use this method then, is to pull down the temperature quite far down until it becomes very blue in the image. But the reason I do that is when it's blue like this, you can see magenta and green quite easily. So what I'll do now is, and remember all skin tones has a bit of magenta in them. So I'll pull this tint until I start seeing magenta in the bride's face. Almost there, almost there, almost there, around about there. And now what I'll do is I'll add some temperature until I feel I've got that white balance locked in. Look at that, and right there. Guys, before we get to tip number 6, I would love you to leave a comment down below. Tell me which tip you like the most. Also, click on the like button and click on the subscribe button as well as the notification button so that you can be notified when I load up a new video. Let's hop on over to number 6. Tip number 6, last one, it is color grading. Not a lot of you are using it. It is a new feature in Lightroom, and you might be scared to use it or not sure how to use it, but it is so powerful. Like I said, the color grading tool is a new feature in Lightroom, and I don't think a lot of you have played with it that much. The cursors are quite sensitive, so it's hard to sort of have control over it, but I have found a way. There's 2 keys that is a big tip for you guys, is Shift and Control, or then on Mac Command. But the Shift and Command key is amazing. So what I suggest is always to use Shift first and then just move the center off to the outside, which will then saturate the image, because that is what that line does. It is saturation and the amount of it. I overdo it so that I can see what color I'm working with. Then once I've pulled it almost to the middle, I take then the Control or Command key, and I now look for the color that I want with regards to the hue. Let's say it's that one, and then I pull back the saturation by holding Shift. There we go. And then on the shadow side, you can do exactly the same. You can hold the Shift, pull it up, and then look for the color that you want to do in the shadows. Let's say we want the shadows a bit magenta-y, and I'll hold the Shift again and bring back the saturation. And we're going to go to the highlights, do exactly the same. Let's say we want the highlights a bit on the bluish side, and then bring in that saturation on the blue side. There we go, just like that. Look at that. Now let's do a before and after of the color grading. It's subtle, but it's a nice edge to have. Guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked the tips and tricks. Tip number 6. Tip number 6, guys. Tip number 6. Tip number 6, guys. Tip number 6. Color. Tip number 6, guys. Tip number 6. 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 Tip number 6 is the color.